Morning peace practice. So this morning we'll be including, a little bit of movement just to, free the body, create some space so that when we come to sitting, it feels very, hopefully natural. And please, I'm going to unmute everyone, but please unmute at any time if you want to. So we will start sitting for a moment. I've just decided this morning I'm on two chip foam blocks, but of course you can be on blankets or the bolster. Come to the edge of your bolster to where you really feel the back, kind of the top of your leg and the bottom of the buttocks, so that when you sit, you find that line. And then the legs can release, not dropping down a lot, but the legs can release, the sitting bones descend, and you feel that line of the top of the legs, bottom of the buttocks. So we'll be working, not like working it hard, but we'll be focusing, I guess, on that area a little bit this morning. And if you feel you'd like a little bit of a blanket over the feet and ankles, you can. We will just start sitting for a few moments. Tenting the fingertips, bring the fingertips to the floor, to your bolster or blocks, depending on what you're sitting on. You can bring the fingertips, depending, I know the length of everyone's arms, but if the fingertips could be almost the same height as your hips, it might mean bending, of course, the elbows, fingers pointing forward, cup the palms. As if you had a soft ball in the palm of the hand, and bring the hands back so the fingers again are in line with the outer hips. Really feel the tips of the fingertips, so I'm not pressing hard into the fingertips, but using that more to move the mid shoulder blade. So we know where the top of the shoulder blade is, the bottom of the shoulder blade, that line that kind of cuts the middle of the shoulder blade. Move that in and lift the chest up. Really allow the tops of the legs to descend, kind of deflate down, so there's a lot of space between the abdomen and the top of the thigh. I like to sometimes even just lift the head more to open up the throat. And when you do that and bring the shoulder blades in, you might feel even more space, like you're creating a channel from the back of the neck down. And then levelize the head. Let the eyes gaze down towards the floor. As you lift the inner and outer corners of the armpit up, you might, feel the shoulders roll back naturally. So it's not that I'm trying to force the shoulders back, but think more of lifting the armpit, and maybe it clears that space for the shoulders to go back. Trying to maintain that, we can bring the hands to the top of the legs. Just close the eyes for a few moments. Keeping that lift to the spine. Try and relax any tightness in the brain, front and back brain. The sides of the brain releasing down behind the ears. Let the eardrums release. The lower jaw. Feel the eyes release back further in the skull. Just taking these few moments as we settle in. Bring awareness from the outer body inward. More attuned and connected to our own breath, body, mind. That feeling when the body and mind unite, there's no stress. There's a chemistry that's created that brings a sense of harmony. As we sit a few moments longer, let's take this opportunity bring a sense of gratitude for each breath, for this practice, and the opportunity we have to practice together to benefit ourselves and those around us, to create that sense of peace, calm, tranquility within that we can carry forth with us through the day. And in a book we're reading in a book club, Bringing Yoga to Life, we were discussing Sutra 133. And Mr. Iyengar's translation of that sutra is through cultivation of friendliness, compassion, joy, and indifference to pleasure and pain, virtue and vice respectively, the consciousness becomes favorably disposed, serene and benevolent. That these four attitudes of friendliness, compassion, joy, and indifference are meant to bring the mind to a stable state. But in the next sutra, Patanjali also gives other ways that we might attain this state. He says in 134, by maintaining the pensive state, felt at the time of soft and steady exhalation, and during passive retention after exhalation. So today I thought we'd maybe focus a little bit just on that next sutra, 134, where we are not necessarily focusing fully on that exhalation and that retention, but bringing our body to that state naturally, mind and breath. Just very slowly, the eyes open but stay, angling down. So first you focus on the floor, soft focus to the floor. And then you can let the eyes become more level, parallel to the floor. And then you might roll the shoulders just down the back. From here, we'll take a blanket, and you can either, fold the blanket in, maybe a accordion, 3 or 4 fold, or you could roll the blanket. I'm going to roll the blanket, but you could fold or roll the blanket. We'll bring that onto the mat. Coming off of the height you're sitting on, and then you might keep them. I'll keep the foam blocks, or your chip or your cork wood glue blocks. You could use those. I know some people have foam also blocks like this. I call these ones chip foam. We're going to bring this blanket, though, to that spot I mentioned between the shoulder blades, so between the top and bottom, so that center shoulder blade will bring the blanket. So coming down onto the floor, bring that blanket to the center of your shoulder blades. I like to just start with the hands behind the head, just to, hold the head, center the hips. Let the back of the head release down to the floor. The arms will just come out to the sides. If you find that's too big of a drop for your head to come down, bring, another blanket or a little bit of softness behind your head. Really move the shoulder blades in. Press the feet down into the floor and just create that separation slightly from the lower and upper cavities so you really feel the thoracic diaphragm. Allow the shoulder blades to move in. So even though we have the blanket there, it's a little more restful. Actively move the shoulder blades in. And as you do so, try and relax the throat, so the vocal diaphragm. And as the lower abdomen releases, you might feel the perineum lift up slightly, just naturally. The pelvic diaphragm. Just stay and follow your breath, another 3 or 4 rounds. Really focus more on spreading in the lower abdomen, feeling of spreading in the back ribs. And the feeling of bringing the shoulder blades in. And then after the next exhalation, I can take the hands behind the head again. Bring the elbows up as if they're pointing up towards the ceiling, so it moves the chin towards the chest. And then just roll a little bit from one side to the other, just to loosen up the back ribs, the back body. And then we can roll to one side. We'll come just down to the hands and knees long enough to unroll your blanket. We'll fold that blanket in half. So I've unrolled the blanket. I'm just folding it in half, more like a rectangle. I'll bring that onto the mat. I brought the folded edge closer to me. And then we'll come down, supporting kind of the abdomen, the lower ribs. I'm going to use you can use either another blanket or the chip foam block and just support the forehead on that height. You don't want the head too high, but just so that your face isn't, going into the floor. The arms coming out to the sides. Let the inner legs really roll out. So again, that division at the top of your leg and the bottom of the buttock, let that roll out from the inner groin out. Feel the front false ribs move in. So you don't want to be right on the lower ribs, but more on the sternum. So you're not pressing the false ribs at the front into the floor, into your blanket, but letting them move into the body. And feel that spreading of the back thighs. Press the arms just a little bit down to feel the shoulder blades move in. And keep that softness in the throat and jaw. And then after the next exhalation, we'll bring the elbows in or the palms just under the shoulders. Press back. We'll press back into Adho Mukha Virasana so the knees are apart, toes together. You can bring the hips towards the heels. You may find you need maybe a blanket behind the back of the knees or just between your sitting bones and heels, a bit softer. If your head doesn't easily come to the floor, you can use your block or blanket. Stretch from the lower waist forward, let the sitting bones descend down. So the shoulder blades, that mid-shoulder blade still moves into the body, but don't let the front false ribs poke down to the floor. The front ribs move in, the shoulder blades move in. Let the back of the skull move away from the neck. To the next exhalation, we'll slowly come up and bring the knees together. We're going to tuck the toes under and come to standing. We're just going to come to standing for, it might end up being 5 minutes or so, and this, is something you can do even on your own a lot longer. But we're going to stand in Tadasana, in mountain pose, and focus on those areas of this back thigh spreading out first. Okay. So the feet can be slightly apart. If you feel any pinching in the lower back, bring the toes in slightly, the heels out just a little bit. Not a lot so you feel straight on the knees, but just enough that you can really feel this back inner groin rolling out. Really separating the top of the thigh and the bottom of the buttock. You let at the beginning the eyes gaze forward. Over time, the eyes might close. So let your awareness come really to spreading the back inner legs out. As if there was a little string or something attached to the inner leg and it was pulling, really rolling the back inner leg out, spreading the back thigh. Just keep bringing your awareness to spreading the back of the leg out. And really try to spread the back of the leg. So there's some internal movement even happening. And then observe what's happened to the breath with that spreading. Did you feel maybe a slight suspension of the breath? Even though you weren't focusing on your breath necessarily, did that action of spreading the back legs bring a suspension? And just try again and see what happens. Keep spreading those back thighs. And now descend the heels down from the back of the thigh, lengthen. So from that top of your thigh, lengthen down. Feel that you're almost lifting the bottom of the buttock up. So there's a spreading and a lengthening. So the legs are active. Just release for a moment and bend the knees, just release the legs for a moment. And then we'll come back, so just feel how you feel now. And then as we go from spreading those back thighs again, just feel what the change that happens to your breath. When you descend from the back of the thighs, lift the bottom buttock up, that feeling of lifting the bottom buttock up. Do you feel any difference in the thoracic diaphragm, possibly? And then draw the shoulder blades in, that mid shoulder blade. Move that in, just like when we had the blanket there, when we brought the hands behind us when we were sitting. And hopefully feel maybe an opening in the vocal diaphragm, the throat. So bringing that sense of all the diaphragms open from the pelvic, thoracic, vocal. And we begin to lose that separation of ourselves from that around us. Feeling the breath just flowing through. Like a ship at the bottom of the ocean. It's not containing that water. It's just all the same. That sense of the boundaries of your body. And then as we release, we'll try to bring that same feeling into Adho Mukha Svanasana. So we'll come into downward facing dog pose and just try to bring that same sense. So you can come first to Uttanasana. Actually, let's do that. Let's come first to Uttanasana. You might need your hands on the blocks. Separate the legs still here. The toes might come in slightly. So we're still trying to open up that back inner thigh, rolling the back inner thigh around. Descending, lengthening from the back of the leg down as the bottom of the buttock lifts up. You may move the hands a little bit away at first. To get that feeling in the legs, in the abdomen, the diaphragm. And let the throat open as the shoulder blades move in. Bring the hands in closer to the feet if you feel you can. Keep those areas open, that sense of connection to all around you. Keep spreading the back legs, lifting and lengthening. From there, step your feet back into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog pose. Maybe we still spread the back inner thigh out. So spread that area first. Really feel that separation, the top of the leg from the bottom buttock. Press the heels towards the floor to lengthen the back of the leg and feel what happens in the abdomen. The shoulder blades move in. And then we can slowly exhale and release back. And then before we come to sitting, keeping that same feeling, we're going to do that same pose that we began with. So we'll roll the blanket again. This time we'll come into Supta Baddha Konasana, so you might need the belt. Or you might like to have the belt for around the legs and maybe blocks or blankets to the outer thighs. Again, depending on your head and neck, if you found it drop back too much, you could bring the blanket. When you use the belt for this pose, one way to use the belt is looping it around you, bringing the belt around the lower back, the sacrum, around the outer feet, and pulling that belt tight so it keeps the feet moving in. That's a lot on your groins, your legs. Use blankets or blocks to support the outer legs. As you come down, the tailbone moving towards the heels, that blanket in the mid shoulder blade right across the back. Keep moving the shoulder blades in. You pull on the belt a little bit with the feet as if you want to break the belt. Feel that lengthening in the lower back. And as the shoulder blades move in, really soften and open the throat. This opening of the diaphragms, the breath. There are times it has that suspended feeling. Just notice the mind. Is there a quietness, a silence to the mind? Because it's at that state that Patanjali says that we're fit for concentration. After the next few breaths, When you feel ready, and bring the arms in. You might lift the feet, just slide the feet out of the belt. And slowly roll to come up to sitting. And then again, take the height that you need to be able to let the legs release down a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to sit on 3 folded blankets. You might be on blocks with a blanket, bolster with a blanket. And come to that edge where you bring, the top of the thigh near that front edge. So you might be a little bit forward to the front edge of the height than we have before, but again, find that separation. You can even, take your hands and roll the thigh from the inside out to draw that flesh of the buttock back. So we're creating that same feeling. We're spreading the back thighs to create that opening, the pelvic diaphragm. The bottom buttock lifts up as we move the flesh of the buttock back. And bring the fingertips behind to move the shoulder blades in and open up through the front throat. Cross out the shins. So the knees come in a little bit closer. We don't want the knees too wide. The legs release down. Just stay here a few moments with the hands behind the fingertips. Pressing down lightly, but there's a lift up. And bring the hands to the thighs. I'll ring the bell at the 5 minutes, just so you know where those 5 minutes are, that I'm watching the time as we sit, so that you can just let go completely. Any remaining tightness in the brain, release. The mind, just make way for the breath. Thoughts become still. The emotions become stable. not thinking so much of when the breath comes in and when the breath moves out. But just at what point can your breath be free to flow within the body? Those larger, the more gross movements brought a silence, quiet state to the mind, more subtle connection. Any adjustments you need. If you feel that you're gripping in the abdomen or discomfort in the feet, you can change the cross of the legs. You might feel you want to add a little bit more height. Interior spine lift as the upper back releases down. Deflate the top of the thighs from the inner thigh to the knee. Send the sitting bones down. Throat to be open. As a response to the release of the body, shoulder blades moving in to lift the sternum, the lower jaw relaxing. There's not a forced action. But one movement opens the gates for the others to release, spread, to relax. You feel you're more a witness. Experience. It doesn't create any that emotion connected, attached, that you just are one. Your individual consciousness blends with the universal consciousness. As Patanjali writes, remove the veil of covering the light of knowledge, heralds the dawn of wisdom. They'll be that reminder if you need. From here, don't necessarily even have to open the eyes that much. But we'll just slowly, move into Adho Mukha Svanasana once more, your downward facing dog pose. Just to keep that sense in that each pose, we have the same feeling, makes it the asana. That contortion in the poses really come when you're not feeling that sense of connection, that ease. Can we bring that same state into our downward dog? Then slowly exhale to release down. We will come into Viparita Karani, which is legs up the wall. You may want to bring a blanket onto your mat and bring a bolster to the wall. If you have 2 extra blankets, I'll just show you something you can do with those. To come into this pose, that we want to sit at the side, come onto the outer hip, and roll onto the floor, supporting the lower back. The sacrum, the buttock might hang down a little bit, the back of the thighs, legs to the wall, so we get those shoulder blades still moving in, that separation, the back of the thighs. You can take, if you'd like, one of the blankets to just cover the torso. And then one, I've just folded in half lengthwise, you could bring to the forehead, cover the eyes a little bit. So shoulder blades move in, the inner arms roll out, the palms face up. can stay in the Virjoo if you'd like, or if you kind of move the blanket, if you have that over the eyes to the side, you could slide down on your blanket, cross the shins, and just support the back of the legs on the bolster. Change the cross of the legs. Whenever you feel ready, of course, can stay in this relaxed state for as long as you'd like. When you feel ready, just bending the elbows, bringing the feet to your bolster or floor. You may roll them to the right side for a few moments. You roll almost towards the floor, press to come up to sitting, so that the head almost stays releasing down the ego to the heart. We look inward to the heart and bring the hands to the heart. Gesture that the divine light in me bows to the divine light in you. A connection of our natural spark from within. And with each breath, it's of peace, contentment, joy, bringing us to that state where we can be friendly to those that are happy, compassionate to those in distress, feel joy, those with the good fortune, and indifferent to those Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Have a wonderful rest of your day.